I'm here with Valeria Falcone from Colliers. Valeria, I don't know if we should talk a little bit more about your background, give us a little bit of highline, what you have been doing in the last years.
Sure. Thank you for inviting me for this interview. So I'm Valeria Falcone and I am the CEO of Colliers Italy. Just joined a few months ago. Before that, I've spent 20 years into the investment business with the bearings and before Carlisle, and then some other experience in the service. So I have a very wide and big experience in the Italian market, before as an investor and now as a service provider.
Valeria, to start, how would you describe Italian market at this moment for you, and how you're studying at Colliers, how you see the Italian market at this point?
Well, the first quarter was a good quarter for Italy. We had a quite good start of the year for all asset classes, I would like to say, particularly with logistic, but also offices and also retail. So, and a surprise. So it was a very good start of the year. And so at this moment, the market is in good shape in terms of interest for the market and also in terms of fundamentals.
Let's highlight logistics, right?
Yeah.
How the players in the Italian market are adapting themselves and the investments and all the developments. How do you see these kind of changes and how they are adapting themselves into this new view?
So I would say the logistic, it's still a very interesting asset class for investors. I was in a panel before, moderating a panel, and some of the investors say that the risk-adjusted returns that they can get in Italy seem very attractive, also compared to other places in Europe. So say there's interest from investors. The market is getting more sophisticated, so location matters more and more, and not always we understand what tenants need, and therefore we have to be more careful. This is also one of the reasons why maybe transaction could get a slowdown. And then ultimately the timing to get building permit is very long, and sometimes this scares investor. But other than that, I would say, vacancy rate is very low, 4.8%. There has been a phenomenal rental growth in the last 3 years with more than 7% annual compound growth. And so we also see some more rental growth given the demand-supply imbalance going ahead. So in general, good interest, some risk on the supply side, which in a way, increase the rent. So always possible to have good returns if you are sharp investors and you know what you're doing, and you also get the help you need to get to the let's say to the trajectory of getting a building permit.
Do you think the deals remain strong in Italy, or we are approaching right now a new cycle in logistics? We are just talking about how the movement in the market, how we are changing, etc. So,
I mean, as I say, the start of the year was very good. And normally, when we had such a quarter, normally, it means that the year will behave in a certain way. So we're expecting a quite good year in terms of 2025. Of course, there's a lot of clouds, let's put it this way, and a lot of volatility. So investors are more cautious. They embed that volatility within their business plan, which means sometimes still creating some difference between asking price and willing to acquire price an asset. So a bit of price mismatch. So, not everything positive, but in general, we don't think that everything that is happening is going to have a big impact on the real estate. It could be a fantastic year, put it this way. It will probably not be a fantastic year because of all this uncertainty. We still think there's going to be a relatively good year.
Great. When we're thinking about rental growth, right? What are the prime rents? Are we raising more key hubs? Only Milano, other locations? How do you see that point?
Yeah. Well, the market, the rent has raised in a lot of sub-markets. Okay, of course, Milan is the one, but in the last 3 years, the rent has grown more in the Verona market, for example, than in Milan market. Despite everything, we'll think something different. Of course, the highest rent is in Milan and in Rome, but the growth has been quite important in a lot of sub-markets. all driven by demand-supply imbalance. And we think that that trend will continue, maybe not at the pace of the last 3 years, but we're still projecting rental growth in the year ahead for sure, and potentially also in 2026.
And what about specific in Italy? Do you think right now for logistic, it's more interest than other countries to invest in logistics, or how you're seeing this movement? Because we know that example is the region that we have mostly the logistics side, industrial, etc. But how you're seeing right now Italy as a main point? So it's interesting to investors how it works.
Well, it's Italy is still a relatively small market in terms of capital real estate. Logistic, for example, it's relatively bigger compared to the rest of the market if you compare it to the rest of Europe. But nevertheless, apart from the call it lower liquidity, because the transaction it's 3-4% to the total European transaction, the other fundamentals of the market are attractive in this moment, also compared to other countries. The same, the risk-adjusted return seem interesting, and the fact that demand supply is so tight in a lot of asset classes, not only in logistics but also in the office market, also in the hotel market, in the retail, not to talk about the residential, of course. So because of all this, all the dynamics work very well. We are attracting more attention. And frankly, the country has behaved to a certain extent better than other countries, also on a macro level, which is a complete news, okay? Because in the past, we were always penalized because the macro was not working very well. So all in, we are getting a lot of interest, okay? So as I say, it could be phenomenal here because of the interest we're getting. And then, of course, the threat that the world is facing also have an impact for sure. But we are living a very good season, put it this way.
You spoke a little bit before about retail, office. How do you see other assets? Do you think logistics should be one of the main three that international investors should put money on? Or how do you see the other assets here in Italy?
I think that for sure, let's talk about 2025 and 2026, potentially, logistics will still play a big role. Likewise, the residential market is playing a big role, not only built to rent, but also built to sell. In the build to rent, it's all about, there's a lot of student housing, because the shortage of student housing in Italy is really at a minimum compared to all Europe, okay? So it's really the country in which there are less student housing compared to any other countries in Western Europe. So, those will continue. The fact that to produce an asset in Italy takes time for the reason I was saying before, so building, permitting, this will imply that you will not get very quickly into a time in which supply will be too high. So that's why we see still some time for these asset classes. Hotels is a bouncing asset class in this moment. It's really behaving well. We think that there's going to be more because despite the asset class has grown, there's a lot of consolidation still possible at tenants level. So we believe that, and at asset level as well. So we believe that will continue as well. Retail is gaining more traction. It looks like let's say that the pricing again and the risk-adjusted return there seems to be interesting. And so High Street has never had a lot of issues, but talking about more shopping center, retail park, to a certain extent, they do have less issues, but also we're seeing in the shopping center a little bit more stabilization, okay? In terms of new asset classes, still in the residential, we think that the senior living will continue to attract interest once we find the right, let's say, to implement it. And then everybody talks about data center. For sure, data center, it's one of the topic of the day. Interesting, very interesting. The size of that might not be so big because, again, building permits, energy issues are creating a lot of resistance to a true development of that asset classes. But in general, say, is a good moment for all asset classes. I didn't mention offices, but talking about offices, well, we're seeing some interest, rebound interest for offices, And especially, of course, in location like Milan, for sure. Also some interest from value add, but some interest from core. So to end this, I say, it's clear that core capital is started to be raised. Okay, this the back of last year that was happened, and we start seeing some effect of that. That's why I think all the asset classes are now working better, because in terms of demand supply, it was working also 2 years ago, but there were no core buyers. Now the market is a bit more diverse, is getting more sophisticated in this way, and this is why all asset classes are getting benefit from this. The winner is still going to be residential and logistics, so not a big news compared to what everybody says.
And to end, I would like to ask you, which advice you should give to investors or developers that are aiming to enter to start working with the Italian market?
Well, the market it's very complex. Okay, so differently than from other maybe more northern European market, this is a complex market. So my advice would be get some help. Okay, and so getting into Italy, running the business from somewhere else without having people that helps you on the ground, it becomes very difficult. And it can be operating partner, it can be boots on the ground, it could be advisors. Okay, advisors are getting a bigger role, more, let's say, European role also in Italy. So, and the market in general is more sophisticated. What is not changing, unfortunately, is the regulation. Regulation is still an issue. Okay. And that's why you need local people to understand how to unlock the values through the very complex bureaucracy that this country is still facing in a way. So, I would say, just look at the macro, understand the market that come here to see, okay? Come here to talk with people. You will understand that there's a lot of potential value. If you talk with a lot of our clients, the majority of them have done really well in Italy in the past year, okay? Much better than they've done in Germany. Although they were investing much more in Germany, they were investing in Italy because, again, the macro of the country has always stopped people to come and invest. But the reality is that value-add players were doing very good money here. And core buyers found that the market is less volatile compared to other markets, okay? But again, you need to know where you're putting your hands in a way. You need to understand the dynamics of the market. If you don't do that, then it will be more complicated. I would not recommend to do it sitting in, Houston or something like that. You need to be here or have somebody helping you to get through the process.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Valeria. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.